Okay, so this is the third time I'm gonna film this video, so fingers crossed this time you're actually going to see the end result of this. Hi, hello, and welcome to another video on the house renovations. Today I'm finally, hopefully, fingers crossed, gonna talk about electricity. If you hear a weird buzzing noise in the background, it's the old fridge that we are using in this house that came with the house, and it's still running. Good quality, ladies and gentlemen, because it's been turned on and off, on and off, on and off. The fridge is still working. It's old, but it's doing its job. Anyway, as I just mentioned, I filmed this video a few times because I've wanted to talk about electricity for the longest time, and I've first of all always hoped that we would actually have electricity at this point, and spoiler alert, as you can see behind me, we don't. And the other thing is that there were some changes made and some decisions and everything just changed, so I kind of have to refilm this. Also, I'm sorry that I look like a ghost. I don't know exactly why I look like I've just risen from the dead, but I guess it's just, you know, a white girl in winter kind of thing or something like that. That was so cringy. Oh my god. Okay, so you can see we've made some progress with electricity, but we don't have electricity yet. And I just wanted to talk about the whole topic because it's been a journey for us. And as I said, we made some decisions in the beginning of 2023. So there's that. And I just wanted to encapsulate the entire journey of getting the electricity to a point where we can eventually call the electrician in one video, so it's like coherent and it makes sense and it's not like in between a bunch of other things. And as you saw in the last video, it was just a lot of coding for the last couple of months, and alongside it was the electricity stuff. So it happened in parallel, and that was like the only thing we really did in the last couple of months. So before we travel back in time to the early stages of this whole renovation process, from when we're gonna move on to today, just a little disclaimer, I am fully aware that I'm a bit naive and a bit of a dreamer when it comes to many things, and that I do not know a ton about electricity, which is a shame because my father knows a lot. My father made a lot of electricity stuff in his life, and I just don't understand any of it. So if I'm not using the correct terms or not saying the right things, I'm very sorry. I'm speaking from someone who literally has no idea about this whole thing. But I'm learning as we go. But again, also in English, I don't know all the correct words for things. So please forgive me for that. I'm just here to tell you our story of what happened with our electricity and where we're at and where we're going. Okay, let's travel back in time and talk about what our original idea was and why our electricity box is here inside a lava wall and not anywhere where it would have been a lot easier to place it. Before we ever even, you know, bought this specific house, and when we were just discussing ideas of living together and building a life together, the thing that we knew almost immediately was that we wanted solar. We are both very interested in sustainability and trying to live as sustainable as we can in the moment, while still acknowledging our limits as individuals, of course, and considering circumstances, you know, but we just want to try to live as sustainable and as self-sufficient as we can, which can look very different for very different people, and is often not as perfect as people would like, and certainly as we would like, but for us it was important that solar was one of the priorities on our list. However, when we bought the house, we also knew that we couldn't afford solar right away. However, what we did know was that we needed a complete new electricity system. The cables are super old. I mean, they're still working because we're like the little bit of light and electricity that we do use here during the renovations is from the old cable, so it is working. However, everything is incredibly old and outdated, and like the electricity box has only one single switch. Newer electricity boxes obviously have like 10, 15 switches or more, depending on the size of your house and the complexity of the electricity inside the house. And so obviously that stuff needs to be exchanged. And of course, because we also redesigned the entire interior of the house, and because we are people that use electricity quite a lot for things like laptops, my camera, and all this kind of stuff, you know, like we needed more outlets. I think the entire house had like 3 outlets in total, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, of course, like we redesigned the entire house, so there needed to be like new outlets basically everywhere, new switches everywhere, and new lights everywhere. Shortly after we started the renovations, we weren't really thinking about electricity that much at the time because we knew it was only coming later. However, we then heard that there was a project going on that the government would give money back to the people who would get solar, which is amazing. For context, the Azores are officially by, you know, political leaders and whatnot, considered as one of the poorest regions in Europe, which is why they are massively funded by EU money. Like a lot of the projects that you see here, like the public projects, like new streets, new public buildings, all that kind of stuff, a lot of it is financed with EU money. Not everything is made by EU money, or not only by EU money. I need to clarify that before anybody gets mad again in the comments. But yeah, there is a lot of EU money coming in to support, you know, rebuilding stuff and just modernizing the island, really. And oftentimes when the EU says, okay, we're gonna give you a new batch of money, the government or the governments of the Azores need to decide on certain projects that they're gonna invest the money into, so they actually get access to the money, because they have proved to the EU, look, like this is what we're gonna do with the money, it's actually going to be used for something that creates change. Which is pretty cool, and sometimes they end up having projects that support the people here when they, for example, want to do something like solar. So for 2022, they decided to fund people who are gonna put private solar on their houses or their lands, which is amazing. And I'm talking about the solar panels, not the lithium batteries. Those are like very separate. Only solar panels were funded, and up to 100%, which is incredible, and it's so awesome. And of course, as soon as we heard about it, we went to the company that is doing the solar, and we were like, hello, we want that, thank you very much, this is exactly what we need. Perfect. Of course, that stuff comes with a lot of bureaucracy, and we were super lucky that the company offered to do that for us. However, there was a problem. Actually, there were multiple problems, because why would it ever be easy? Those problems, however, they didn't occur until a while later. So since like early summer, I would say June, something like that, I don't remember the exact time, we were convinced that we were getting solar, because we said that even if we didn't get the funding, which turned out to be a bit harder because so many people applied for the funding, which is so exciting. That makes me so happy that so many people were interested in getting private renewable energy. Like, how amazing is that? So we said that even if we didn't get the funding, we would still get the solar panels, because the price was not as high as we anticipated without the lithium battery. Because basically the batteries are just so you can save the energy, and if you don't have the batteries, you can still use solar panels, just only when the sun is shining. So yeah, we said like at least in the summer during the day, like we use our own electricity, and then for the rest of the time we're gonna use the electricity off the grid until we can afford those batteries. So that is when the preparation for the new electricity began. And that is why this new electricity box that is still empty is here in the kitchen, because the solar cannot go on our roof, because the roof cannot support the weight of the solar, because the roof is not, you know, stable enough and new enough to do that. So the solar would have gone onto our land, and then with a cable that goes underground would eventually come into the house here, which is why we decided to make the electricity box here. And the journey to get here was a long one, because our house is made of volcanic basalt rock, which is very hard. Basically, what you see here is what is underneath here. I know it doesn't look like it because this is already coated and painted at this point, but this lava rock is just very hard, and we also had to make like a whole new thing of making a lot of new tubes and outlets and stuff, and oftentimes also in the lava rock, so that took a lot of energy to cut all of that open and yeah, get everything ready. Oh no, I didn't have that. Yay! Woohoo! Oh no, I just cleaned the floor. So by the end of December, this is more or less how it looked like. Most outlet spots are in place and the electricity box is finally here and secure and beautiful, and I love it, and I just wish it was filled already and we already had electricity. I'm like so naive. I always think, oh, this is the last step, like tomorrow we can call the electrician, and then always something else needs to be done before, like every single time. But yeah, that was done like more or less by December, and then in January, now the last month, we installed some more smaller wood beams on the ceiling in order to help the electricity travel across the ceiling, and also for us to eventually apply the ceiling from below.
É mesmo na Nesga?
Aqui é para vaquear.
Ah, isso é. Pronto, colher para cima. Assim.
And what we're currently doing now in early February is preparing the electricity downstairs. If you remember, one half of our house has a whole layer underneath, a loggia as it is called, and that still needs electricity, especially because that is going to house our boiler and our freezer and that kind of stuff. So of course that stuff needs electricity too, and we hadn't done that yet, so that is what we're currently working on. And then I hope we can eventually call the electrician. Fingers crossed, I don't know what else we can do, seriously. So that was a multiple month-long journey to get to where we are now. And again, hopefully in maybe like a week or two or something, we can finally call the electrician to get the new electricity. However, you might be wondering, yeah, okay, interesting, but what happened to the solar? So basically what was promised to us again early last summer was that we were gonna get our solar within like a month or two or maybe 3 months. We would have the solar ready to go, and then over time it would be decided if we would get the money back from the state or not. However, none of that happened. Like the company, and I'm not pointing fingers here because they were just buried in work, especially paperwork. I think 2022 was like the worst year because they had so much paperwork to do because of that funding stuff. But like the company didn't come through and never installed the solar to this very day. And then in the funding, like some rules changed, and like in the middle, even though it was already running, they suddenly changed like some things, and like the government, I mean, they changed some stuff up, and it just became very complicated. And again, like the chances were getting lower and lower because more and more people were applying. But what eventually was kind of like the last nail in the coffin was that we knew we weren't getting the funding because we are not currently living in this house. And one of the countless papers that you need to have in order to get access to the potential funding is a paper that states like how much electricity do you use in like a year or a couple of months or whatever. So they can then decide like how much funding do you actually get based on how much you actually need. And because we're not living here yet, we're not getting the paper. And originally it was said, oh, no problem, we're gonna get you like a statement from some official person that that's not a problem and that, you know, you're gonna move in soon. But apparently that didn't happen or wasn't possible. I don't really know what happened behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, we didn't get that paper, and without the paper, the chances are basically zero. And while last spring, early summer, we were convinced that we were gonna get the solar regardless of the funding, now in early 2023, we have found ourselves in a position where we have to unfortunately reevaluate that decision. The reason for that, as most of you probably can imagine, is money, because we are not unaffected by the rising prices that are happening everywhere. So the renovations, materials, things that need to be delivered, etc., have gotten more and more expensive with each week. Groceries have become more expensive with each week. And the renovations, as you guys know, have taken a lot longer than we anticipated, and therefore also have become more and more and more expensive. In the very beginning of 2023, we sat together and we reevaluated the decision. And based on the fact that nothing has happened so far, like there is no solar anywhere to be seen, also not anytime in the near future, again, no pointy fingers anywhere. I completely understand why it happened the way it did. But nothing has been done, and the money situation just got more complicated, and we knew we were not gonna get the funding for sure. Even though we were still like in the paperwork process, but we knew we weren't gonna get it. So this is why we decided that for now, we are opting out of the solar, which is kind of ridiculous that we made this entire hole. But then again, honestly, in a few years, we really want to try again. Either if there's another round of funding for something like this, which would be incredible, I hope the government sees the interest, the big interest in this type of funding and does it again. Or alternatively, once we have saved up enough money to invest into it ourselves, we would really love to get solar, because again, it's so important to us. We just can't right now. It's just not possible, and which is why we have opted out of solar for now, which made me very sad. So that is the journey of our electricity. I hope that within the next couple of weeks there's actually gonna be electricity here and we can, you know, have outlets in every room. Like, what a wild concept. I hope you enjoyed this little storytime video, and I hope that the people of you who are also on their own sustainability journeys see that sometimes it can be complicated, and that's okay. Like, not everything is always accessible to everybody, and sometimes things are just too expensive or just not accessible enough for everyone to achieve the same things, even when they want to. Like in our case, like, we want to be more sustainable, but it's just not possible right now. But that doesn't mean we're not aiming for getting it all sorted eventually. And I hope that this story one day is gonna have its deserved happy ending. Until then, I hope you guys have a great day. See you!